Impression so far is that the obstacle avoidance sensor is actually working, and it's pretty insane.
In today's video, we're going to talk about the DJI Mini 4 Pro and talk about if it's right for you and should you spend the extra money to upgrade to it. My cousin Derek loves cameras and drones much like me, so we headed out to my local Seawalk in Campbell River, BC to try out the Mini 4 Pro, and he also had an Insta-1 360, like the X4 newest model. And while I fell in love with some of the features instantly of the Mini 4 Pro, it got me thinking how much all of these drones kind of feel the same when I fly them, and the footage even looks pretty similar. So this is like the top of the line camera. It'll run you about 1,500 bucks in Canada, but the Mini 2 SE is so much cheaper and has a lot of the features. So it got me thinking, let's do this video today talking about the pros of why you should spend the money on the top tier drone, and also why it might not even be necessary for you. Point number one of spending the extra money on the Mini 4 Pro is it has 360-degree collision sensors, and I think that's amazing, but it's also like a luxury feature that I don't feel confident completely in trusting it, just like ripping it in sideways to a telephone pole or anything like that.
Pushing left, the drone's moving a little bit, but it won't let me go further into the pole, and you see that there's a red indicator there, and it's stuck right there.
They do make DJI Care Refresh for that reason. So I think regardless of if you buy a drone with collision sensors or not, you're still gonna need to pay that extra money for the DJI Care Refresh. So to me, that's not really worth the extra money. And also it's important to note that in low light, these collision 360-degree sensors don't actually perform that well. So keep that in mind. It's actually gonna be like pretty similar to the other drones that don't have collision sensors. So you can't trust it in low light. Point number two is that this drone now has 10-bit color, which just means in post you have the flexibility to play around with colors a lot more. It also has log footage, whereas before it was decine like in the Mini 3 Pro, but now in the Mini 4 Pro you get log footage, and what that means is better dynamic range, and then again the ability to color grade your footage to what suits your style best. Point number three, which I'm actually pretty excited about, is something called Waypoints, and essentially we had all those quick shots in the past. If you watch my prior videos, I talk about them a fair amount, but Waypoints is like a new way to get kind of like creative dynamic shots, and I'll show you a little bit how that works here. So I'm not going to spend the whole video on it, but essentially what you do is you go to the Waypoints on the top left. It's highlighted here in yellow, and you press the C1 button just to highlight all the waypoints. You fly the drone to where you want it to go. You click the C1 button, and then you can see I'm adding waypoints here. You can be janky with it. It doesn't have to be smooth because the drone is going to smooth it out for you once you press record. Point number four, a little bit gimmicky to me because these features are crippled a little bit, but if you really like slow motion and shooting slow motion with your drone, you get 200 frames per second at 1080p, or in 4K you get 100 frames per second, and I shot my cousin using the one wheel in slow motion, so here are some examples of that. Really quick, if you're finding value in this video, it goes a really long way if you could just leave a like. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, and let's dive back in. The reason these slow motion modes are a little bit gimmicky is just because you have to switch back into auto mode for them, much like the low light on this. Point number five is that it has new like artificial reality. So if your battery is draining, before you could look on your map and then you could like fly home, but now it has like this green beam that just like shows you the direction of home, and it like kills your anxiety a little bit. So I found that cool. And it also, if you're like pointing down and say you want to land it on a picnic table, it now has like a general area where it will actually force land the drone. And it's actually like really accurate. So yeah, you can play with that. Both those features, not a necessity for me, but kind of cool add-ons. Point number six is something that we've all been waiting before, and this is subject tracking on these mini drones. Now the Mini 3 Pro did have it, but the 4 does it really, really well in my testing. So I was just able to kind of go like hands off, and I was like running as fast as I can. It runs like alongside alongside you, or flies alongside you, I should say. And then it also does like has the ability to go in the front of you or back of you. So yeah, I found that actually really cool. Point number 7 is night mode, and it's really nice to see that the low light performance of these mini drones continues to get better and better. The low light performance, if you watch some of my old videos, it had like a better sensor on it, like 1.7 aperture on the lenses, so that automatically made it better in low light, and a dual native ISO. That just meaning that you get better quality footage when you go past 500 ISO. So in my Mini 3 testing, I found that at 800 ISO, it was actually still not noisy and a really clear image. Now in the low light mode, it's a little bit crippled. Again, you can't do it in D-Log, but it does look good in the regular color profile up to 3200 ISO. So if you're shooting in really low light situations, this could be helpful for you. Point number 8 has nothing to do with the drone, but the new RC2 controller actually does a really good job in improving range, specifically because it has 4 antennas now. So it has 2 built in, and then it also has the ability to kick these up. So if the drone's above you or really, really far, you can actually like manually play around with that. But I didn't have a lot of issues with my Mini 3 anyways for range testing. Now for this controller, because it has OcuSync 4, you do have a rated ability to go 10 extra kilometers. Again, with interference and things like that, you are going to run into issues depending on where you are shooting, but it's nice to know that they are constantly improving the range of these mini drones. So before we get into the cons of the Mini 4 Pro, I just wanted to show you how to level up your video editing with Motion Array's new hub feature. The footage you're seeing was taken with the Mini 2 SE in the scorching hot desert in Jordan. I wanted to add a little something extra to the footage, so I went to Motion Array's hub and I saw a plugin called Heat Distortion. They have a lot of other plugins, but this one seemed to fit perfect. It was also super easy to install. I just downloaded the hub from Motion Array's website and installed the plugin to my Final Cut directly. And don't worry, all these plugins work with DaVinci, Premiere, and After Effects as well. If you sign up using the link in my description, you'll get an additional $50 off. Thank you so much in advance for supporting the channel, and let's dive back in. Okay, now let's talk about why the Mini 4 Pro might be a little bit expensive for what it is and your needs. First, let's talk about video and specifically frame rate. So the Mini 3 Pro shoots at 4K 60, and so does this drone. The biggest upgrades in video that you're gonna find is the 10-bit color, which if you like color grading your footage and shooting in log, you might notice a difference. But if you shoot in regular color profiles, it might not be worth upgrading. Even the Mini 3, which is super cheap, I picked it up for like $500 Canadian, and that was brand new from Best Buy. That shoots at 4K 30. So do you even need the 4K 60 to get better slow motion? Are you not shooting in slow motion with these drones? Because if that's the case, you just save the money and shoot at 4K 30 or 4K 24 frames per second. So in short, ask yourself, what are your needs for this drone? And if you shoot in regular color profiles, I don't know if the Mini 4 Pro is worth the extra money. In terms of photography, it's much the same. Ever since the Mini 2 SE dropped, we got that 12 megapixel like DNG, so you could shoot in raw photos. If you mostly shoot photography and not shooting a lot of like video with these drones, again, the Mini 4 Pro might not be a necessary upgrade for you to spend that extra money. The Mini 3, which is a much cheaper option, also shoots 48 megapixels, same as the 3 Pro and same as the 4 Pro. So again, ask yourself, is it worth that extra money? Point number 3 is that wind is still wind and these drones are small, so it doesn't fix the hovering problem where you're close to a subject and it's really windy and your footage is shaky. If you want something like that, maybe you need to start with the Air series of drones. But again, this is still a mini drone and might suffer from some of the wind problems you've had in the past. Number 4 is battery life. So they didn't improve the battery life. In fact, the Mini 3, when I did my review on it, has better rated battery than the Mini 4 Pro. So in terms of battery life and flight time, you're not getting an upgrade there, but you're spending more money. Number 5 is quick shots. So for like the past few years, a lot of these drones have had the quick shot features, and yeah, the Mini 4 Pro has them, and Asteroid Mode as well, which is really cool, and I'll show you that here. But the Mini 3 Pro has that as well, and if you don't really need Asteroid Mode, is it worth spending the extra cash? Number 6 is that there's no substantial upgrade to the lens on the camera, 1.7 aperture at a 24mm focal length, since the Mini 3, and the Mini 3 and Mini 3 Pro are again cheaper than the Mini 4 Pro. So think about that. And point number 7 comes down to the controller. So the RC1 I absolutely love, and I think it's amazing. Though it's 720p transmission on the Mini 3, you still get 1080p transmission on the Mini 3 Pro. So with this new controller, yeah, it has like separate antennas and 4 antennas, and it can go a little bit like longer in range, but is that worth spending the extra money to you? Anyways, all of that is just food for thought, and let's talk about the final verdict. So in my opinion, the Mini 4 Pro is a really impressive drone, but it also comes with a pretty hefty price tag. The answer is pretty simple. If you're somewhat new to drones, you don't color grade your footage, and you don't need the latest and greatest features, don't spend the extra money. If by chance you shoot professionally, you've been waiting a really long time for 10-bit log footage, and you need the longest possible range, plus you have the budget for it, it might be worth picking up. To me, DJI has done such a good job with their budget drones that they cater to the majority of users anyway, so you don't necessarily need to spend all this money right off the bat. So if you like the sounds of the Mini 4 Pro, but you're on a budget, consider checking out. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you, and we'll talk in the next video.